Hi, everybody. Welcome to Stefani Learning Studio. I'm so glad you're here today. We're going to get started really quickly on the study of mathematics. And the first thing we're going to talk about is whole numbers. Now, why am I picking whole numbers? If you watched my video from last week, I kind of gave you my story of where I came and how I came to be where I am now. But I do want to say that I went back to school at 38 after being out of school for 15 years. I had already had an algebra class when I first got out of high school. I did okay in it. I didn't do, really well. I think I made a C or a high C in it. And so I already had the credit. So when I went back to school, I knew I wanted to be a math teacher. So I said, okay, well, what's my next step? My next step is trigonometry. Okay, so just think now, okay, thinking she's crazy. And I was, and I didn't have any guidance. So I just thought, okay, well, I've already had math I've already had algebra. They won't let me take it over again because I had a passing grade. And so the next step was to go into trig. Well, I went to trig and my world burst. So watch my other video. You'll see what I'm talking about. And before we get started on whole numbers, get you some water. I've got mine. It's not going to be a long video, but I just wanted you to be prepared and have some, and you want to stay hydrated. And also, I'm going to lower this just a little bit. I feel like I'm looking up at you. Um, also, have some paper and pencil. Now, what I would like for you to do is if you look down below, I have got a link for a workbook and you can download that. It's free. And I'm going to be going over that workbook for this particular lesson. Now, this is free for you. And you'll be able to see where I'm coming from, how I'm doing things, and then you'll make a decision of whether you want to continue. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to stop the video just for a second so I can get my things together. You get your things together, and I'll be right back. See you in a sec. So, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to introduce you to the learning guide, and this is learning guide number 1, and it's on mathematics foundations. Now, I'm not. I wanted to tell you that I'm going to have different um, lessons for you, and each series is going to be talking about different things. Well, the first series is called Mathematics Foundations. Now, foundations is where you start from, and basically, the Mathematics Foundations has 5 different sections to it. This is learning guide number 1, and we're going to talk about the language of whole numbers. Okay. Now, I've got a couple of little things. It's going to be talking about the um, series that I'm putting together, and you can look at that. I'm going to go scroll through there. I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about what Mathematics Foundations is, what my promise is to you, and here's my copyright down here. You can just glance over that whenever you get ready. Now, let me talk to you about how to use this guide. Now, I don't want to read it to you because you can go back through this and first, at your leisure. But I do want to go through the steps really quickly. So, step 1 is watch this lesson. Okay, so I'm going to go over this lesson. Then, step 2 is follow along. So, if you need to stop and get this, then you can come back on and you can start the video again. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to talk about vocabulary. We're going to check for your understanding. And then you're going to build your Mathematics Foundations library. So you're going to download this. You need to name it. And I believe on my first page, yeah, right here is called Learning Guide number 1. And if you would go ahead and start to a file on your computer, you can start it and say, okay, Mathematics Foundations, and then that's your folder. And then your first one is going to be Learning Guide number 1, and that's what this is. When you download it, I think I've got it named as that. Yeah, I do. Learning Guide number 1. You can, it will download like that and then just save it and put it in that folder. So this is going to be your foundations library. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is, I want to read this to you. Learning mathematics isn't about being fast. Okay. And that's right here. Let me see if I can get my annotation tools. I want to kind of go with you just a little bit and show you. Learning math isn't about being fast. It's about understanding. Every lesson that you complete is another step toward greater confidence, stronger skills, and new opportunities. Okay, so that's what this is. That's what the whole Mathematics Foundations library is going to be. Okay, so let's go and let's get started. So the very first thing we want to talk about, even before I go into here, I want to discuss with you the word math. Now, if you saw in my I think it was my thumbnail. I said math is not a four-letter word. Okay, well, that's a whole lesson in and within itself. And I'll probably talk about that in another lesson. But I wanted to talk to you just a little bit about what I call, what I name my course. Okay. And my courses are named Mathematics so and so, Mathematics Foundations, Mathematics, whatever. When I first walked into my first mathematics education master's level work at Florida State. Our professor, I think there was about 12 of us in there. And our professor, the very first thing he said was, first of all, I want to tell you that it's not just math, it's mathematics. Math is a four-letter word that just really doesn't really, you think about, when you think about math, you think about adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. How many cups are in this recipe, or, how far am I going to drive? How far is, how long is it going to take me to get to a certain place if I go this many miles or whatever? Well, that's math. Okay, mathematics is so much more. It's like putting puzzles together. It's like building your knowledge. It's like building a new language. It's like um building the logic that you have, that you've got, but you've got a lot of cobwebs in your head. So mathematics is way more than just adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. So you're going to hear me preface our lessons back and forth from math to mathematics, and most of the time I'm going to say mathematics. So if you look at here in our vocabulary reference guide, this is a reference guide that you are going to need to use in every lesson that we do. So that's the reason I'm starting from scratch. When you go in and you start a new language like Spanish or French or Mandarin or whatever, you have to learn the vocabulary. If you don't, as it builds, you're not going to understand what's going on. So the one thing that I want you to understand about mathematics is this: it is cumulative. Okay. What that means is it builds. It builds. You start here, then you do here, and 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 you keep going. So I guess I should have started from bottom and gone up, because that bottom rung is your vocabulary. If you don't understand vocabulary, you're going to really, really struggle in everything else that we're going to do in this next series. Or really, not even just this next series, it's my whole curriculum. If we don't start out from scratch and learn the vocabulary, we're going to struggle. Okay, so let me see, yes, if I can make this bigger. Okay, now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about whole numbers, natural numbers, place value, digits, periods, place value chart, standard notation, expanded notation, word names, order of whole numbers, equal sign, and inequality sign. Now that's 10 words that you're going to need to know as you build, and we're going to build on this. And if you, like, I said in your folder, if you want to do something just for vocabulary and take the vocabulary part out and build it, you can do that. I don't know if you have a way of separating your PDFs or taking a screenshot just of your vocabulary, you can do that, but I kept it this way so that you would keep everything in a file. All right, so let's talk about whole numbers. Now, before we go there, let's look at this. Remember that learning the language of mathematics is an important part of building a strong foundation. It's just like whenever I walked into that trig class, they were talking about things, they were talking about domain and range. And I had completely, after 15 years of life, I was thinking, what? I don't even know what they're talking about. Well, domain and range has to do with, we'll talk about that later, the X and Y values and stuff of algebra, but that's way far from here. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about the basics, the things that you may have learned when you were in elementary school or in pre-algebra, but you've forgotten. And that's okay, because to be honest with you, there was a couple in here and I was thinking, oh, I forgot what that was. So I had to go look it up. Just because you are starting this and from scratch, it doesn't mean that you're not going to need it. So let's just, I had to check and see if I was recording. Okay, so the first one is whole numbers. Now, whole numbers are counting numbers, just like what you learned in kindergarten. Counting numbers are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on into infinity. Now remember, I said including zero, including zero. Now, fractions and decimals are not included in this. Whole numbers are counting numbers. When you started in kindergarten, you started with 0, then you went to 1, 2, 3, and so on. Negative numbers are not included. Fractions are not included. Decimals are not included. It's just the counting numbers from 0, starting at 0 to infinity from now on. There's not an ending to it. There's a beginning, but there's not an ending. So that's whole numbers. Natural numbers, that's the same thing, except for natural numbers do not include 0. Okay, they do not include 0. So you might want to, as you're going over this with me, highlight that part so you will know that it does not include 0. So you got whole numbers and you've got natural numbers. Now, place value. Place value is when you have a number and there are digits that have a certain position in that number. For example, let's say you have 1,365. Well, what place value is the 6 in? So it's 1,000, what did I say? 1,265. The place value for the 6 is in the tens place. The place value, that the digit that's in the hundreds place is the 2. The place value that the 1 is in the thousands. And then I think we said 1,265. Then what's in the ones place is the 5. So each one of those digits has a certain position in that number that's so important. And I'm sorry, I keep looking over to the side because I have 3 monitors and I'm looking over the side. So please don't think that I'm not paying attention to you. Okay, so I'm going to try to remember to look at you, but I've also got to look at my other screen. Okay, so the next thing is periods. Now, this word here is in science and it's in math as well. In STEM classes, you've got, but in the mathematics section of it, we're going to talk about how there are periods in a longer number. So if you think about it, when you have like, oh, let's say 600,000, 600,000. Well, when you go in and you write it, you've got 600, comma, 000. So what they're asking you is that in order to break it up so you can actually read this, they break it up into sections of 3. So those first 3 zeros is 1 period. The second 3 sets of digits is the second period. And if you were in the millions, then it would be a third period. So I'm going to show you those in just a second on the next page, and I'll kind of show you that, what I'm talking about. But that's what periods are. Now, a place value chart, it's just a chart that you see that will separate those periods so that you can see that. That's all that is. Okay. So when they talk about a place value chart, then they're talking about a table with those periods separating in threes. The next thing is standard notation. Now, standard notation is, and these are the ones that you get mixed up. You've got standard notation and you've got expanded notation. Now, what do we mean by that? Standard notation is our standard way of writing a number. Standard notation is digits, okay? That's standard notation. Expanded notation is when you get those digits and you put each one of those digits in their place value, and that's the value of that digit. So I'll explain those on the next page. Let me scroll down and let you see. I'm going to be doing some down here so you'll understand what I'm talking about. Okay. All right. So you've got standard notation and you've got expanded notation. The next terminology or the vocabulary term that you need to know are word names. Okay. So every number has a numerical number and it has a word number, a word name. Okay, it has a numerical name and it has a word name. Now, a word name is just a number that's written in words. Now, be careful. I got into a lot of difficulties whenever I was still doing that because I used the word and all the time, and I got my behind in a lot of trouble for that. So I have to show you why in just a minute. But word names are really, really important when you are writing out, um, when you're writing a paper. Say you are going to go back to college and you're taking an English class or you're taking a science class and you're writing writing a paper and you're talking about the number 9. Okay. Well, whenever you're writing a paper, and from the numbers 0 to 9, those are written in names, in a name. So you're going to spell it out, Nine. But after you get over 10, then you can start using the numerical thing. Like there are 11 apples in the pile. There are 11 apples in the pile. Well, 11 is past the 10, so you can say 11 with a 1 1. But if you said there are 9 apples in a pile, typically you would write Nine. That's just one of those little things that I learned over the years of writing papers and things like that. So that's why you'll see that. Not all the time, no, but the best way to write and the correct way is from 0 to 9. You write it in names, in letters, and after 10, I think in 10, I'll have to look that up. I can't remember if you're supposed to write 10 with TEN or if you're supposed to write the digits 1 and 0. If you know, put it down in the comment section. I'll have to look that one up. I'll come back and let you know that one in my next video. The next one is the order of whole numbers. Order of whole numbers. Well, we already know that whole numbers are numbers that include 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to infinity. Well, the order of that is there is a number line, and on that number line, each number has an order. So we know that 5 comes before 6. We know that 10 comes before 20. So that is the order of whole numbers. And there is a way that you talk about it, and it's called inequality signs. And we'll talk about that in just a second. So that's the order of whole numbers. You're either going to go from like, if somebody asks you, can you put these numbers in order? Well, do you want them from greatest to least or least to greatest? So you've got to know what least is, you got to know what greatest is, and you have to know what they want. If they want it from least to greatest, obviously it's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then if it's greatest to least, it's going to be like 10, 9, 8, 7, and so on and so on. So that's what we're talking about, the order of whole numbers. Now, the equal sign, we all know what that is. We learned that very early in life, what an equal sign. It means that something equals something else. So the letter word, the word name 9, Nine, equals the numerical 9. Okay, it's the same thing. It's just written differently. Okay, when we get further in, then we go in and we start talking about, well, 5 plus 3 equals 8. Well, yes, 5 plus 3, when you add those, they're going to add up to equal to 8. So 5 plus 3 equals 8, and that equal sign is what you're going to use. Okay? And you can see the symbol here. Now, the inequality sign, you've got less than, you've got greater than, you've got less than or equal to, or you've got greater than or equal to. Those we're going to talk about in much more detail in further lessons. But right now, it's just the terminology inequality signs. If inequality, in means not, okay? So when inequality, when you're using the word inequality, that the left-hand side does not equal the right-hand side, okay? Doesn't matter. Inequality means they are not equal, so the left-hand side does not equal the right-hand side in a math sentence, okay? All right, so let's go back. Let's just look at these very quickly. Whole numbers, natural numbers, place value, digits, periods, place value chart, standard notation, expanded notation, word names, order of whole numbers, the equal sign, and the inequality sign. So that's your 10. I believe it's 10. Well, it might be more than that. 2, 4, 6. Yeah, it's probably 15. I don't even know how many I have on there. But that's your first set of things that you need to know in this very first guide in this series of whole numbers. All right, so let's look at a practice. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to give you the answers. Okay, I'm going to guide you through it and kind of give you some hints. I'm not going to give you the answer, but when you scroll down, you're going to have the answers right here. Okay, so let's just kind of look at these very quickly. And like I said, if you need to stop for a minute and get something to drink, I'm going to. Always stay hydrated when you're trying to learn something new. It really helps the brain. And if you need to get up, walk around a little bit, that's the best thing to do to help you stay focused. All right, so what I'm going to do now, this is a quick practice. This is not a quiz. I don't quiz you guys. You're not taking this class to make yourself feel bad. What you want to do is take this class so that you know that your confidence is building and that you're understanding all of this. So all of those things that I taught you on that, or that I explained to you on this previous page, if you don't understand those, don't worry about it. Like I said, when I was first putting this together and I was going through a textbook, I don't even know where my textbook is right now. I was going through my textbook that I taught when I was teaching developmental math to some college adults who were coming back to school. And this was the very first thing we talked about. And I was going through that book and I was thinking, okay, to talk about whole numbers, and I need to talk about vocabulary before I even get started with anything else. So that's the reason I'm doing what I'm doing. I do not want you to feel bad. This is a confidence builder. This is to help you understand whether or not you think you can make it in a college classroom. If you get this background thing and get the mathematics working in your head and understanding that, hey, I can do this. That's what my goal is. I don't care if you get them wrong. I don't care if you get them right. Well, you know what? I don't mean it that way. I do care, but what I want you to understand is I don't want you to feel bad. I want you to understand this. And if you have questions, put them in the chat box and I will come back with them and I'll answer those questions. And then also just know that as you go, I'll be talking about these every lesson. I'll talk a little bit about more. I'll build on it. I'll build on each section. Okay, so the first one is, what does the digit 8 mean in the number 258,032? What does the 8 mean in that? In other words, they want to know what place value it is. Okay. How many periods are in the number? Now remember, the period is when you've got three digits that are separated by a comma. Okay, you got three digits, you got three digits, and you got three digits, and so on and so on. But I want to give you a little hint. Right in here, there's a 6, there's not 3, but that's okay. That's still included in there. It's still part of a period. So you would say you got 1, you got 2, you got 3. Is that what I have? Just look at it and see. And then scroll down and see what your answer is. Now, the next thing is you're going to convert. Now, the word convert means, for those of you who are a little, maybe your English is not your first language, convert means to change something. Okay, so convert 526,320 into expanded notation. Now, what that means is that you want to get each place value and you're going to say, okay, well, the 5 is in the hundred thousands place. So the 5 means 500,000. The 2 is 10,000. So the 2 is in the 10,000s place. So in the expanded notation, that means you're going to add 500,000 plus 20,000 plus 6,000 and so on and so on. That's what I'm talking about. And when you go down further, you'll be able to see in the answer key what they're looking for. Now, I want to stop and explain something to you real quick. And if you remember back in the day when you were in high school, the textbooks, they always had the answers in the back of the book. And when I first started studying, it's so funny. I would tell my students, I wouldn't say anything to them about the answers in the back of the book, and they would kind of, go to the back of the book and just kind of look real quick and then close it up real quick, see if their answer was right. And it was almost like they felt like they were cheating. Okay. Y'all, let me tell you something. If you know what the answer is, then work backwards, and that will tell you that will help you, guide you of how you got to that answer. So the answers in the back of the book are very important. The problem is a lot of students, and I'm not just talking about high school students, my college students as well, they would give an answer and they would just give me the answer, wouldn't show their work or anything. And I said, well, how did you get that? Well, I don't know. Back of the book, the answer's in the back of the book. Yeah, the answer's in the back of the book, but you have to know how you got there. So just remember that the answer's in the back of the book, or the answer's on the internet, or the answer's in my answer key. Use it, reference it, research it, but understand it's just a tool. You have to know what you're coming up with. You got to know the why behind the what. Okay. You got to know the why behind the what. All right. So let's go to number 4. Now, write in standard notation. Standard notation, like I said a while ago, if you just go back and look at the verbiage, standard notation is just the actual number. Okay, so what you're going to do, it says write in standard notation 365,000. There you go. So look at the answer, and then it'll kind of guide you to how to find standard notation. But again, if I in my curriculum, my whole course, I go in and exactly show you how to do all of that. Okay. All right. So now compare 65 and 57 by writing the correct inequality symbol. Now remember, inequality means not equal to, so you know that 65 doesn't equal 57, but 65, if you look at the order of the whole numbers, 65 and 65 is larger than 57. So on the number line, 65 is going to be the right of 57. But in order to write the inequality sign, you've either got less than, greater than, less than or equal to, or greater than and equal to. Okay, so you've got those 4. Now you have to decide. Okay, so you choose what you think it is, and then look down at the answers and see if you got it right. If you didn't, then you'll have an idea of where you went wrong. Now, write in standard notation again. 306,242,012. Again, 306,242,012. Think about your place values. Put them and get you a table. If you make yourself a little table, put them in there, and then you'll know how to write it in standard notation. Okay. Now, the next one, number 7, use less than or greater than to make this true statement. So 5, little box, 8. Now I gave you a number line so you could look at it. And then you're going to know, are you going to use the left-hand side, the less than sign, or are you going to use the greater than sign? Okay. Less than sign or greater than sign. Usually, not all the time, the less than sign is pointing to the left. Kind of one of those little things that kind of helps you. Less than sign is pointing to the left. Now, is that always the truth? Not necessarily, but if you have the order of whole numbers written correctly, then less than is always going to be pointing to the left. Okay, write a word name for 85. Now, when you have the word 85, there's always going to be a dash between the 10s and the 1s. Okay, that's a little hint. And then true and false. The set of numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on are examples of natural numbers. Is that true or false? Go back up to your vocabulary and look at it, okay? Remember, natural numbers do not include 0, whole numbers do, so that will help you. Now, number 10, this is the one that got me in trouble all the time. And when I first started studying the mathematics education, true or false? The word name for 2,365 is 2,365. Now, did you hear how I read it the first time? 2,365. I read it 2,365. But it says the word name for that is 2,365. Never use the number and, I mean, the word and. And that is because and denotes decimals. So you don't put 5,655 and, okay? I'm so sorry, my phone's ringing. Okay, now let's go in, let's finish this up. So here's your answer key. Now here's all of your answers. I want you to look at those. And remember, if you missed a question, don't get discouraged. You haven't done this in a very long time. You haven't looked at these words in a long time. And to be honest with you, a lot of these words you probably never even paid attention to when you were studying it. So just remember that whenever you were studying this. Okay. Then I have a little confidence check for you. And then I kind of like give you the next steps. Okay, so let me stop sharing just a second. And I want to talk to you just one more second before we go. I've spent a little bit of time on here and I've been teaching this. Now, a lot of it, I didn't really give you I wasn't writing anything down. A lot of it was just more you listening to me and looking at the workbook. And I want you to know that this, again, we're not in a race. I don't want you to feel bad if you didn't understand some of this terminology. That's okay. Download this, save it, put it in your folder, and then we'll go from there. Now, in the next couple of videos, I'm going to be working on this. I think there's a series of 5 in this first category, okay? A series of 5 with whole numbers. And we're going to be working on those. I'll do those every 10 days, and I'll keep putting them in, and they will be on my website. Now, this one is free. And then the next one's the video will be available to you, but in order for you to get the rest of the workbooks, you'll have to there's a small fee for you to get these. But again, this one is free. I wanted to give it to you so that you would have an idea of what my lessons are going to be like, and then we'll go from there. I also am going to have a whole curriculum on this, a course for this, if you want to do all of them together, but that's not put together yet. Okay. I'm in the process of doing this all back to back math connection from one thing to another. So it is going to take me some time, but it'll give you some time to actually work on this, making sure that you've understood this and making sure that you're okay with it. Okay. All right, everybody. I am so glad you came. I hope to see you again. And don't forget, subscribe to this. And whenever I was going to tell you, when you do go in and get your your workbook, you obviously give me your email address. But the reason for that is because I want to keep you abreast of where I am in the series and how things are going. Okay. All right. Please let me know if you have any questions. Put it in the comments. If this is too easy for you, that's fantastic. But just remember, there's always going to be somebody who doesn't know the same amount that you do. And there's always going to be someone who's going to know more than you do. So let's not judge each other. Let's just say, okay, this is great. Please don't be too harsh in the comments, because there are going to be people in here that have not done this before. And if they see the comments, and if you say, oh, well, this is really easy, well, it might not be easy for them. So let's just keep everybody in check. Okay. And but I do want to know what your ideas are, your questions are, what you would like for me to do for later on, and we'll go from there. All right, everybody, I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.